My dad disowned me for becoming better than his golden child and starting my business, said I was dead to him. 5 years later, my company bought his employer. He's not dead to me, just unemployed. All right, Reddit, buckle the hell up because this story is a wild ride of family dysfunction, corporate revenge, and the most satisfying I told you so moment of my entire life. This has been eating at me for months, and I need to get it all out there. So I, 32 male, come from what looked like a normal middle-class family on the outside. Dad worked for this regional manufacturing company for like 25 years, moved up from floor supervisor to operations manager. Mom stayed home with us kids. Pretty standard American dream setup, right? Wrong. Because my younger brother Derek, 28 male, was the golden fucking child who could literally shit diamonds in my parents' eyes. Let me paint you a picture of how bad the favoritism was growing up. When I was in high school, I had to maintain a 3.5 GPA minimum or I'd lose my car privileges. Derek? This dude barely scraped by with a 2.1 and got a brand new Honda Accord for his 16th birthday. Not a used car. Not a will help with the down payment situation. A straight up gift with insurance paid for a year. I worked at Target through high school and college to help pay for my expenses. Derek never worked a single day until he was 23. And even then, it was only because Dad pulled strings to get him a cushy job at his company in the sales department. No interview, no resume, just, my son needs a position, and boom, $45,000 starting salary with full benefits. Every achievement of mine got a half-assed good job, while Derek got full celebration dinners for the bare minimum. I graduated college with honors in business management, got a $50 gift card to Olive Garden. Derek finally graduated after 6 years with a degree in communications and a 2.3 GPA. Mom threw a party with like 40 people, catered food, the works. The double standards were so obvious it would make a reality TV producer blush. But I kept my head down, worked hard, saved money. Figured eventually they'd see my value. Spoiler alert, they didn't. After college, I landed a solid job at a mid-sized tech company doing operations management. Learned everything I could about supply chain logistics, vendor relationships, manufacturing processes. The company I worked for made industrial components. Nothing glamorous, but steady business with good margins if you ran it efficiently. I was there for 3 years, busting my ass, taking on extra projects, learning everything about the industry. Meanwhile, Derek was coasting in his sales role at Dad's company, basically getting paid to take clients to lunch and golf. He'd brag at family dinners about his big deals that were really just reorders from existing clients. But Dad ate it up like Derek was closing Fortune 500 contracts. Around year 3 at my job, I started noticing inefficiencies in our supply chain. We were using these outdated distributors who charged insane markups and had terrible lead times. I started researching alternatives, building relationships with manufacturers directly, finding better pricing structures. My boss at the time was this old school guy who didn't want to hear new ideas from some kid. Shot down every proposal I made, told me to stay in my lane and just do what I was told. Classic boomer management style. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Except it was broke. They just couldn't see it. That's when I had my first real moment of clarity. I was 28, sitting in my apartment looking at spreadsheets I'd built in my free time, and I thought, why am I trying to fix someone else's company when I could build my own? The idea was simple. Cut out the middlemen in industrial supply chains. Connect manufacturers directly with end users. Streamline logistics. Use actual technology instead of fax machines and phone calls like these dinosaurs were still doing. It wasn't rocket science, but nobody in this industry was doing it efficiently. I spent 6 months planning while still working my day job. Built a business plan, identified potential clients, mapped out the technology infrastructure, saved every penny I could, lived on ramen and peanut butter sandwiches to bank as much cash as possible. When I finally had enough saved for 6 months of basic operations, I put in my 2 weeks. My boss literally laughed in my face. You're going to start your own company? In this industry? Good luck, kid. You'll be back in 6 months begging for your job back. Should have been my first sign that people underestimating me was going to be a theme. I was excited to tell my family, though. Stupid, right? But I genuinely thought they'd be proud. I'd been planning this huge thing, taking a real risk to build something of my own. Scheduled a family dinner at my parents' place on a Sunday to share the news. Big mistake. Huge. I showed up with a printed presentation. Yeah, I made a whole deck like I was pitching to investors. Had market analysis, financial projections, client pipeline, everything. Was actually nervous about presenting it, which should have told me something. Got there around 5 p.m. Derek was already there with his girlfriend. Some girl he'd been dating for like 3 months, who already had a list of wedding venue preferences. They were drinking wine my parents bought specifically for them, while I got offered a beer from the back of the fridge that was probably there since 2019. After dinner, I pulled out my laptop and said I had something important to share. Dad was already looking annoyed, like I was interrupting his quality time watching Derek breathe. Mom at least pretended to be interested. I went through the whole presentation: market opportunity, competitive advantage, revenue model, growth projections. It was solid work. I'd spent months on this thing. When I finished, there was just silence. Finally, Dad put down his wine glass and looked at me like I'd just told him I was dropping out of school to become a professional juggler. "So let me get this straight," he said. "You quit your stable job with benefits to start some distribution company out of your apartment?" "It's more than that," I said. "It's a technology platform that modernizes how—" He cut me off. "Technology platform. Right. And where exactly are you getting the capital for this little venture?" "I've saved enough for initial operations. Once I have proof of concept, I can seek additional funding." Funding. He actually laughed. "You think banks are going to give you a loan? You think investors are going to throw money at some kid who quit his job to play businessman?" The disappointment in his voice was so thick you could spread it on toast. Mom just looked worried, wringing her hands together. "Dad, the industry is changing. The old model is inefficient. I've already identified— The industry doesn't need changing by you." His voice was getting harder now. "It's worked fine for decades. What it needs is people who understand it. People with experience. Not kids with PowerPoint presentations." Derek, because he's incapable of reading a room, decided this was his moment to chime in. "Yeah, man, I don't know. Sounds pretty risky. Maybe you should have stuck with the steady paycheck. Not everyone's cut out for the entrepreneurial thing." This coming from the guy who'd never taken a single professional risk in his entire life. Never applied for a job without Dad's help. Never built anything. Never put himself on the line. "But sure, tell me about entrepreneurship, Derek." "I've done my research," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "I've built real relationships with manufacturers. I have clients ready to commit once I'm operational." "Clients," Dad said, like it was a dirty word. "And what happens when those clients don't pay? When your suppliers demand upfront payment? When you run out of money in 3 months? You think you can just come crawling back to a stable job?" "I'm not planning to fail," I said. "Nobody plans to fail," he shot back. "But most people do. Especially people who think they're smarter than everyone else in an industry they barely understand." That stung. I'd been in this industry for 3 years, had actually done the work while he'd just managed people from an office. But pointing that out wouldn't help. Mom tried to smooth things over. "Honey, we're just worried about your future. Your father has seen a lot of businesses fail in this industry. He's just trying to protect you." "I don't need protection," I said. "I need support." Dad stood up from the table. "You need a reality check. This whole generation thinks they can just skip the hard work and start at the top. You need to put in your time, learn the business the right way, work your way up like I did." "I've been working my way up," I said, frustration creeping in now. "That's exactly what I've been doing. This is the next step. The next step is job stability and experience." He crossed his arms, not throwing away a good position to chase some fantasy. "It's not a fantasy. I have a real plan." "You have a dream," he interrupted, "and dreams don't pay bills. This is irresponsible, reckless. I didn't raise you to make stupid decisions like this." The room went quiet. Derek was smirking into his wine glass. His girlfriend looked uncomfortable. Mom was doing her classic don't rock the boat routine, not meeting anyone's eyes. "So you're not going to support this?" I said slowly. Not a question. "Support you throwing your life away?" "No." Dad's voice was final. "I'm telling you right now, if you go through with this, you're on your own. Don't come running to us when it falls apart." "I wasn't asking for money," I said. "Good. Because you won't get any." He walked over to the kitchen sink, rinsed his wine glass like this conversation was already over. "I'm telling you this as someone with actual business experience. You will fail. And when you do, don't expect me to bail you out or help you find a new job. You make this choice, you live with the consequences." I looked at my mom, hoping for literally any support. She just gave me this sad, helpless look and said, "Maybe you should think about this a bit more, honey. Just to be safe." Derek, never one to miss an opportunity to be a dick, raised his glass. "Hey, if you need a reference when you're looking for work again, let me know. I might be able to get you into our mailroom." That's when I closed my laptop, stood up, and headed for the door. "Where are you going?" Mom called after me. "Home," I said, "to keep building my business." "You're making a mistake," Dad said from the kitchen. "A big one. I turned around at the door. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. Dad's face went cold. Really cold. That scary, disappointed look he used to give us as kids when we really messed up. If you walk out that door and go through with this, don't bother coming back until you're ready to admit you were wrong. I'm not going to sit here and watch you ruin your life. So that's it? I either give up on this or what? He stared at me for a long moment. As far as I'm concerned, if you're stupid enough to do this, you're dead to me. Those exact words. Dead to me. Over me starting a business. Mom gasped. Honey, that's too far? No, Dad cut her off. He wants to be treated like an adult making adult decisions? Fine. But he doesn't get to make stupid choices and still expect family support. If he's so confident in this failure waiting to happen, he can do it without us. The thing is, I didn't beg, didn't break down, didn't try to change his mind, just looked him right in the eye and said, okay. That seemed to surprise him, like he expected me to fold immediately. You don't mean that, Mom said weakly. I do, I said. I guess I'll see you around. Or not. And I left. Got in my car, drove back to my apartment, and didn't cry until I was safely inside with the door locked. Not because I was sad, though I was, but because I was so pissed off. At him, at Derek, at the whole situation. You know what I did that night? Worked on my business. Sent emails to potential clients. Refined my supplier list. Built my website? Because fuck them. If they wanted me to fail, I'd prove them all wrong. The first 6 months were brutal. I'm not going to lie and say it was easy. I was working 80-hour weeks out of my apartment, living on a bare minimum budget. Most days I ate the same meal twice, usually rice with whatever protein was on sale. My apartment was basically a bedroom and an office. Had an air mattress on the floor and a used desk I got from Craigslist. Those early months tested everything I thought I knew about myself. There were nights I'd lie on that air mattress at 2 a.m., staring at my phone, debating whether to text my dad and admit defeat. The rational part of my brain would run through all the reasons to quit. I was burning through savings, had no safety net, was one medical emergency away from bankruptcy. The stubborn part, the part that remembered his face when he said I was dead to him, kept me going. I kept a spreadsheet of every family gathering I wasn't invited to during those first months. Thanksgiving, Christmas, Mom's birthday, Derek's promotion celebration. Each one was a reminder of what I was supposedly missing. Except I wasn't missing anything. I was building something. And every family event they posted on social media, without me, just added fuel to the fire. My apartment building neighbors probably thought I was losing it. I'd be on conference calls at midnight with potential suppliers in different time zones, pacing my living room while trying to negotiate terms in broken Mandarin I'd learned from YouTube. The walls were thin enough that I'm sure they heard everything. The successes, the rejections, the times I'd hang up and want to punch something. But I landed my first client within 3 weeks. Small manufacturing company that needed consistent supply of industrial fasteners. Nothing glamorous, but it was real revenue. The owner's name was Tom, this gruff 60-year-old who'd been in business for 30 years and had seen every distributor scam in the book. He gave me a shot because I was the only supplier who actually showed up on time for our meeting and came prepared with market analysis on fastener pricing trends. Kid, he said after my pitch, I don't know if you're going to make it in this business, but you're the first person in 10 years who actually did their homework. I'll give you a trial order. That trial order was $3,200. Felt like $1 million. Then another client. Then another. I reinvested every single penny back into the business. Upgraded my tech infrastructure. Hired my first employee, guy named Joel, who was working a dead-end job at a logistics company and had real vision for where the industry could go. We worked out of my apartment for the first year, taking calls on our personal phones, using my living room as a warehouse for sample products. My parents didn't call. Not once. Mom texted a few times, brief messages like, hope you're okay and thinking of you, but nothing substantial. I'd hear through extended family that Derek was doing great at Dad's company, getting promoted to senior sales associate or some made-up title. Didn't matter. I was too busy actually building something. By month 8, we'd outgrown my apartment, signed a lease on a small commercial space, 1,200 square feet, mostly warehouse with a tiny office area. It wasn't much, but it was ours. Real business space. I hired 2 more people. Revenue was growing month over month. Year 1, we did $380,000 in revenue. Barely profitable after expenses, but we were in the black. More importantly, we had momentum. Our client retention rate was 94%. Word was spreading in the industry about this new supply company that actually gave a shit about customer service and modern logistics. Year 2, we crossed $1 million in revenue. hired 6 more people, moved to a bigger space, started getting attention from larger clients who were sick of dealing with the old guard distributors who treated them like crap. I never called my parents to tell them, didn't post about it on social media, just kept my head down and worked. The silence from them was deafening, but also kind of liberating. I wasn't trying to impress anyone anymore, wasn't waiting for their approval, just building what I knew could work. By year 3, we were doing $4.2 million in revenue with 23 employees. Had multiple commercial spaces, a real tech platform that clients loved, relationships with manufacturers in 6 countries. I finally took a real salary. Nothing crazy, but enough that I could move out of my shitty apartment into an actual house. That's when I got my first inquiry from a venture capital firm. They'd been watching us grow and wanted to talk about investment. I wasn't even looking for funding at that point. We were profitable and growing organically, but I took the meeting. Ended up taking their money. Series A round, $8 million at a $35 million valuation. Used it to expand aggressively, hire top talent, build out our technology even more. Within a year of that investment, we doubled our revenue. Still didn't call my parents. At this point, it wasn't even about spite anymore. They'd made their choice. I'd made mine. We were just living in different worlds now. Year 5. This is where it gets good. We were doing $32 million in annual revenue with 140 employees across 4 locations. Our client list included some seriously big names. We'd basically become the go-to modernized supply chain solution for mid-size to large manufacturers who were sick of the old way of doing business. I got a call from an acquisition firm that specialized in industrial consolidation. They represented a private equity group that was buying up regional manufacturing and distribution companies. Wanted to know if we'd be interested in being acquired. I wasn't, but I listened to their pitch anyway. Always good to know what your company's worth, even if you're not selling. During that call, they mentioned they were also in final stages of acquiring a regional manufacturing company that had been struggling financially, needed to modernize operations, update their vendor relationships, streamline logistics. They mentioned the company name. It was my dad's employer, the company he'd worked at for 25 years, the place where he'd built his entire career, where he got Derek his cushy sales job. I asked casually about their plans for the acquisition. They laid it out. They were planning to strip out redundant management, consolidate operations, and modernize everything. Anyone who couldn't adapt to new systems would be let go. Classic private equity playbook. Interesting, I said, keeping my voice neutral. What's the timeline on this? We're looking at closing within 6 months, then 18 months of integration. The company's got good bones, but management has been resistant to change for years. Lots of dead weight in middle management that needs to be cleared out. They kept talking, giving me details about the financial structure, the operational challenges, the leadership team that would be replaced. With each sentence, the picture became clearer. Dad's company was dying slowly, death by 1,000 cuts of refusing to modernize. And now, vultures were circling. Then they asked if I'd be interested in not being acquired, but in acquiring them instead, or at least partnering on the operational integration. They'd done their homework, knew we were the best in the region at what we did. Your supply chain optimization model is exactly what this company needs, the lead partner said. You could come in as an operational consultant, or we've been authorized to discuss other arrangements if you're interested in a larger stake. I told them I'd think about it. I didn't think about it. I already knew what I was going to do. The irony was perfect, too perfect to ignore. The son who was dead to his father for starting a business was now in a position to buy the father's employer. The business the father said would fail was now successful enough to acquire the company where the father had spent his entire career. Poetry. Dark. Twisted. Incredibly satisfying poetry. Called my lawyer and my CFO the next day. Told them I wanted to explore acquiring not just a partnership on the operations, but the entire company. Yes, my dad's employer. Yes, I knew it was complicated. Yes, I was sure. We ran the numbers. The company was valued at $18 million, way below market because they were hemorrhaging money due to terrible operations and outdated systems. We could swing it with a combination of our cash reserves, a loan, and bringing in the PE firm as a minority partner. It took 3 months to close the deal. During that time, I had to keep it quiet. Couldn't risk word getting back to anyone at the company before we owned it. The day we officially closed the acquisition, I showed up to their headquarters for the first time. Walked into a building I'd heard about my entire life but never visited. Dad never invited me to see his workplace. Not even when I was a kid. It was his domain, where he was important. And I wasn't welcome there either, apparently. The executive team was assembled in their main conference room. About 20 people, senior management, department heads, some key personnel. They were expecting to meet the new owners. I walked in with my executive team, COO, CFO, head of operations, head of HR, all people I'd hired and trained personally, all loyal to our vision. Saw my dad immediately. He was sitting near the middle of the table, next to Derek, who was scrolling through his phone looking bored. Dad looked tired, older than I remembered. 5 years without speaking will do that. Your mental image doesn't update. He didn't recognize me at first. I'd changed too. Filled out, better haircut, wearing a suit that actually fit instead of the cheap department store stuff I used to wear. Plus, he wasn't expecting to see me. Why would he? Our CEO, we'd hired one about a year earlier when we started scaling, did the introductions. Thank you all for being here. I know transitions like this can be uncertain. We want to be transparent about our plans and answer any questions you have. Then he gestured to me. This is our founder and majority owner. He'll be overseeing the operational integration personally. That's when Dad looked up from his papers and made eye contact. His face went through about 5 different emotions in 3 seconds. Confusion, recognition, shock, disbelief, and finally something that looked like anger mixed with fear. Derek's head snapped up from his phone. His mouth literally fell open. Some of you may have questions about our company, I said, keeping my voice professional and level. We've been in the industrial supply and logistics space for 5 years. We've grown from a startup to a $32 million revenue operation by modernizing systems that the industry has left outdated. That's exactly what we plan to do here. Dad's face was red now. He looked like he was trying to decide whether to say something or have a stroke. I understand change is difficult, I continued, making deliberate eye contact with him. But this company has been losing money for 3 years straight. Operations are inefficient, systems are outdated, management structure is bloated. That changes now. One of the other managers, some guy who looked like he'd been there since the building was built, raised his hand. What does that mean for current personnel? It means everyone will be evaluated based on performance and adaptability, I said. We're not here to just slash payroll. We're here to build something sustainable. But that requires people who can work in a modern operational environment. Those who can adapt will have opportunities. Those who can't. I shrugged. Won't. Dad finally found his voice. It came out strangled. You can't be serious. I looked at him like I'd just noticed him for the first time. I'm sorry, you are... His face went from red to purple. You know damn well who I am. Oh, right. You're the operations manager. I checked my tablet like I was reading notes. We'll need to schedule a one-on-one to review your department's performance metrics. I'm seeing some concerning trends in efficiency ratios and overhead costs. This is a joke, Derek blurted out. You can't just... I can, actually, I said calmly. We own the company now. The question is whether you're an asset or a liability moving forward. The room was dead silent. Everyone could feel the tension, but didn't understand why. Dad stood up, his chair scraping loud against the floor. I need to speak with you, privately. That's not how this works, I said. Any concerns can be addressed through the proper channels. HR will be reaching out to everyone individually over the next week. I'm your father. You're an employee of a company I own, I interrupted. And right now, you're being insubordinate in a professional meeting. I suggest you sit down. Mom taught me to respect my elders. Dad taught me that family comes with conditions. Business school taught me how to keep a poker face during hostile negotiations. Thanks for the lessons. He sat. Didn't have a choice with everyone watching. We finished the meeting. Outlined the transition plan, timeline for operational changes, and what employees could expect. Very professional, very by the book. The whole time, Dad just stared at me like I was a stranger. Which, to be fair, I guess I was. After the meeting ended, Dad tried to corner me in the hallway. I was talking to our head of HR about the evaluation schedule when I felt his hand on my arm. We need to talk, he said, his voice low and intense. Now. I pulled my arm free. I have meetings scheduled all day. If you need to discuss something work-related, send an email to schedule time with my assistant. Work-related? This is about family. There is no family, I said quietly, making sure only he could hear. You made that clear 5 years ago. I was dead to you, remember? Well, consider this a haunting. His jaw clenched. You're doing this because you're petty, because I didn't support your little business. I'm doing this because it's a good investment, I said. The fact that you work here is irrelevant to me. You're just another employee who needs to prove their value. Same as everyone else. I've worked here for 25 years. And in that time, you've watched operations become progressively less efficient, cost spiral, and revenue decline. Your tenure isn't impressive. It's actually concerning that you've been in leadership this long without fixing fundamental problems. That hit him. Could see it in his face. The realization that I wasn't bluffing, that this wasn't some power play or emotional outburst. I'd actually analyzed his performance with the same cold objectivity I'd analyze any employee, and he'd been found wanting. The fastener procurement process alone, I continued, takes an average of 47 days from requisition to delivery. Industry standard is 12 days. Your inventory management system is still using software from 2006. You have 3 people doing jobs that could be automated with basic modern software. And your vendor relationships are so mismanaged that we're paying 23% above market rate on standard components because nobody's negotiated contracts in 8 years. His face went from red to pale because he knew. He'd always known deep down that he'd let things slide, that he'd been coasting on tenure instead of performance. But nobody had ever called him on it because he'd been there so long he was basically untouchable. Until now. You can't fire me, he said, but there was uncertainty in his voice now. I won't fire you for being my father, I said. I'll fire you if you're not doing your job. So I suggest you start documenting what value you actually bring to this organization. Because from what I've seen in the preliminary reports, your department is the biggest operational bottleneck in the entire company. Derek appeared then, looking like he was trying to decide if he should be scared or defiant. Landed somewhere in between. This is messed up, man. You can't just... What's your exact role here? I asked him. Senior sales associate. And what's your sales numbers for the last quarter? He hesitated. I don't have them memorized. They're in your file. You've been below quota for 6 consecutive quarters. Your client retention rate is 61%, which is 30 points below department average. You have the highest expense report submissions in your entire division. And according to notes from your manager, you spend most of your day on personal calls and long lunches. His face went pale. That's not... Those reports are... accurate, I finished. I've reviewed everything. So here's what's going to happen. You're going on a performance improvement plan. 90 days. You'll have specific quotas to hit, specific behavioral standards to meet. If you make it, great. If not, you're out. You can't do this to family, Dad said again, like it was some kind of magic phrase. You're right, I agreed. I can't do this to family. But we're not family, remember? You made that choice. I'm just respecting it. The next 2 months were glorious in the most satisfying way possible. Every department got audited. Every process got evaluated. Every employee got reviewed. I was there for most of it. Not hovering or micromanaging, but present, visible. Dad would walk past my office and see me working with the same teams he'd managed for years, and you could see it eating at him. The knowledge that I understood this business better than he did, that the failure he predicted was now running circles around his legacy. The worst part for him, and I say this with zero guilt, was that I was genuinely good at it. Employees who'd been checked out for years were suddenly engaged because someone was listening to their ideas. Problems that had existed for years got solved in weeks. Dad's operations department was a complete disaster. 20 years of, we've always done it this way, had created a Frankenstein's monster of inefficiency, redundant positions, outdated software, processes that made no sense. We basically had to gut the whole thing and rebuild it. Dad fought every single change, sent long emails about why things couldn't be done differently, called emergency meetings to explain why his way was better, complained to anyone who would listen that I was targeting him specifically. He wasn't wrong, but also, he was. Yeah, I had personal motivation, but objectively, his department sucked. The metrics didn't lie. After 60 days of evaluation, we started making personnel decisions. About 30% of the staff was let go, people who couldn't or wouldn't adapt. Some were retirement age and honestly seemed relieved. Some were younger but had just been coasting for years. Dad survived the first round of cuts. Barely. We moved him from operations manager to a senior specialist role. Big demotion. Pay cut. No direct reports. He'd be doing actual work now instead of just managing. He tried to refuse the position. I told him he could take it or take a severance package. He took the position, had bills to pay. Derek hadn't been contributing to household finances in years, apparently. Derek didn't make it through his performance improvement plan. Shocked face. He tried, I'll give him that. But he'd spent so many years coasting that he genuinely didn't know how to actually sell. His numbers stayed bad. His behavior didn't improve. At the 90-day mark, we let him go. He sent me a text that night. First communication in 5 years. Hope you're proud of yourself. You destroyed your family over a grudge. I didn't respond. Just blocked the number. 3 months into the acquisition, we'd stabilized operations. Revenue was trending up for the first time in years. Client satisfaction scores were improving. The people who'd stayed were actually engaged and working efficiently. I was in the office one evening, late, reviewing some reports. Most people had gone home. Heard a knock on my door. It was Dad. He looked rough, lost weight, bags under his eyes. The past few months had aged him. "Can I come in?" he asked. No demand this time. Actual question. "It's late," I said. "I know, we need to talk, really talk." I gestured to the chair across from my desk. He sat down like it hurt. "I made a mistake," he said finally. 5 years ago, I made a mistake." "Okay," I said. "That's it? Okay. What do you want me to say?" I asked. "You want forgiveness? Absolution? Want me to tell you it's all fine now?" He struggled with it. "I want to understand why you did this. Buying this company. Was it just to punish me?" "No," I said honestly. "It was a good business decision. The company was undervalued. We had the capital and expertise to turn it around. The fact that you worked here was just a bonus." "A bonus," he repeated flatly. "Yeah, a reminder that the failure you predicted never happened. That the son you gave up on built something successful enough to buy the company you spent your entire career at. That your support or lack of it didn't matter in the end." He flinched at that. "I was wrong," he said. "About you. About your business. I was wrong. I know. That's all you have to say?" I leaned back in my chair. "What do you want me to say, Dad? That I forgive you? That we can just move past it? You didn't just not support me. You disowned me. Told me I was dead to you. Over a business decision. I was trying to protect you." "Bullshit," I cut him off. "You were protecting your ego. You couldn't handle the idea that I might succeed doing something you didn't approve of. That I might be right when you said I'd fail. That I might actually be better at this industry than you were." He didn't argue that. "And Derek," I continued. "You enabled him his entire life, gave him everything, expected nothing, and turned him into someone who can't function without help. You ruined him by trying to help him, while telling me I'd ruin myself by being independent." "I know," he said quietly. "I see that now. He can't keep a job, can't handle responsibilities. Your mother and I have been supporting him financially since you let him go." "I didn't let him go," I corrected. "He failed to meet basic performance standards. That's on him. And you, for never teaching him that actions have consequences." We sat in silence for a minute. "I'm sorry," he said, "for all of it. For not believing in you. For choosing sides. For what I said that night. You deserved better." "Yeah," I agreed. "I did. Is there any way to fix this? To fix us?" I looked at him. Really looked at him. Saw the regret there. The genuine remorse. Part of me wanted to forgive him. To rebuild something. But another part, the part that remembered every dismissive comment, every time he chose Derek over me, every family event I wasn't invited to over the past 5 years, that part wasn't ready. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Maybe someday, but not today. Today, you're just an employee who needs to prove he can adapt to new systems. Same as everyone else." "That's it?" "That's it." He stood up slowly. "For what it's worth, you built something impressive. I should have said that 5 years ago." "Yeah," I said. "You should have." He left without another word. Over the next year, we fully integrated the acquisition, turned the company around completely, increased revenue by 45%, cut operational costs by 30%, improved every major metric. The employees who stayed were making more money and dealing with less chaos. Even Dad had to admit the new systems worked better. He stayed in his specialist role, did the work, didn't complain. We had a few brief professional interactions, but nothing personal. He'd show up, do his job, go home. Like any other employee. Derek moved back in with our parents. Last I heard through the grapevine, he was working at a gym, trying to sell personal training packages. Apparently not going well. Mom sent me an email a few months after the dust settled. Long message about family, forgiveness, moving forward. I read it. Didn't respond. Wasn't ready for that conversation. The company I founded is worth over $120 million now. We're expanding into new markets, building out technology that's changing how the industry operates. I bought a house, nice one, paid cash, got a dog, started dating someone who actually respects what I've built. Life's really pretty good. Do I regret buying my dad's company? Not for a second. Was it partially motivated by proving him wrong? Absolutely. But it was also a smart business move that's made me and my investors a lot of money. Sometimes the best revenge is just living well